We bring dogs to our presentations.
I know we don't have a bunch of dummies in this room. This is obviously modeled. Are you raising your hand? Are you volunteering? You're a dummy. I don't believe you. But I'm here to tell you it's not rocket science, okay? It's actually simpler than you think. So I want to do a little UX research right now. Who's in the room? Who's a UX designer already? Woo.
Not yet.
Not yet? You're on the way, on the way. Okay, so who's just interested in UX?
Yeah.
Trying to find out more about what it is. And then who's an Ironhack student? I know we got one over here. Two? Okay, cool. So a lot of new faces. It's amazing. And who's alumni besides me? And Dolly. My main man sitting in the front row. Thank you, Dolly. All right. This is me. I am a full-time human, part-time everything else. My name is Cleary. I have a master's in sociology. I have a bachelor's in sociology and business administration. And like Alex said, I finished the full-time UX UI program back in August. So mine was June to August, and it was life-changing for me. So I hope your experience is the same for those who are in the program and those who will be joining. I'm a UX designer at Abase. I also do content marketing for them, and I also freelance. I do several UX design projects, spearheading apps and things like that for people who are creating new things. Just a few things I'm going to talk about today: why UX, what it is, design thinking, what you need, and then we're going to have a little workshop and then Q&A afterwards if you have any questions. Okay, so why UX? Does anyone know what UX is? Yes, can somebody tell me? Just shout it out.
User experience.
User experience. What does it mean?
The experience of the user.
There you go. That's exactly what I was looking for, my friend. What's your name?
Eric.
All right, Eric. Thank you. You're a superstar. Okay. Total number of app downloads since 2017. All right, so let's look at 2018. 205.4 billion. By 2022, we're going to be at 258.2 billion app downloads. It's a lot of apps, right? Can you imagine how many apps are on the App Store? More than you could think or probably. This is coming. As of September 2018, this is an Apple iOS App Store and the Google Play Store combined, right? So people are making apps every day. There's so many things out there. But what really helps your app stand out is your dev, of course, has to be good code. But your UX and UI, is it functional and is it beautiful? Take a quick guess for me. How many apps do you have on your phone?
100.
100. 50? Depends on your storage, right? How many apps do you use on a daily basis?
15.
5 and 15. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
I think that's a lot. I don't use that many. I wish I would use that many. I have them all sitting on my phone. I don't use them. 9 is the number of the average number of apps, used on a daily basis. And then, on a monthly basis, how many apps do you think we use on average?
23.
23? Okay. We get one more guess at least?
30.
30. Has somebody seen this before? Yes, average number of apps used monthly is 30. So now we're going to get into a little bit of, what is UX? We know it's user experience and the experience of the user, as Sarah told us. But we're going to go a little bit deeper than that. Okay, so the UX umbrella, a lot of things make up UX, right? It includes all of these aspects. And you're always being user-focused. So it's user research, right? That's if you're just starting the cohort, that's what you start with. You have to make sure it's functional first, and you're making something that matters. Information architecture. So this is sort of site maps, how things are set up. Normally, if you are using an app, right, or a website, and it's e-commerce, and you have a shopping cart, where is it normally located?
Right, you go.
Top right. Exactly. That's like information architecture. That's where you expect it to be. Interaction design is the way things move and interact with each other, some animations, things like that. Visual design, of course, is how it looks. That's the UI part, the user interface, and then the web development. So as a UX designer, normally you learn some HTML, CSS, and Bootstrap, JavaScript, not really, but you're not doing any of the back-end stuff. You don't have to worry about that. So Jesse James Gabbett, he came up with the 5 planes model, and he's an author and a UX designer. And basically, this is a great way to think about what UX design really is. The 5 S's, right? So strategy, scope, structure, skeleton, and surface. And this is sort of how you can just think of UX design and how it works as a whole. So the strategy is where it all begins. Why are you doing what you're doing? What do the users really need? And then once you go to the scope, it's what features do we need to include in the app, right? Do we need the shopping cart? Do we need the logout? Like, obviously we need the logout, but structure. So it gives shape to the scope. How are the pieces fitting together, right? So again, this is your information architecture, making sure that it all works as a whole. The skeleton makes it more concrete. So what components will enable people to use the site? And then the surface, what's it going to look like? Right, that's the UI. That's right before you hand it off to the developers. Who's the developer in the room? Okay, Eric and Annika, and what's your names back there?
Patty.
Patty?
Sam.
Sam, all right. Thank you for coming. All right, so let's compare this, the 5 points model, to an iceberg, right? So this is what you see. This is the user interface. But this is what goes on beneath it. If you're not doing the research and the testing, which is super, super important, you're not going to have that beautiful product, right? So testing is super important because doing all this, before you get to the user interface, you're saving so much time and money. So if you make something without doing research and testing, and then you find out, oh crap, nobody needs it, it doesn't work, you wasted all this time and money. Where if you did it the right way, you did the bottom of the iceberg, you're mostly in the clear. All right, so UX designers, they need to both be business and development minded, right? So let's say you're going to work for a company or even for yourself. You have to make sure you're going to get money, so profit, revenue, no losses, you don't want too many losses. And development minded, so you have to know how to hand off to your developers and how to speak to them. And do things that make sense to them. But the approach should always be user-centric, right? So this is something I came up with. Div 2 is do it for the user. Always, always do it for the user. No matter how much you like it, no matter how much you like the colors, if I test it and they're like, oh, these colors don't make sense, this is supposed to be a flower shop and it looks like a hospital website, you have to change it, right? It's not what the user expects to see. This is a great quote by Donald Norman, also a UX designer and author. No product is an island, the product is more than a product. It's a cohesive, integrated set of experiences. Right? So this part is more relative to that iceberg. And another way to think about UX, it's the way you experience an entire product, service, the whole system within the context of your life. So you have to make somebody's life easier, simpler with your product, right? You don't want to make it complicated. UX honeycomb, this is by Peter Morville. This is a way basically to just explain UX to your clients, right? So I freelance, and it's very different from my full-time job. So when people come to me and they have no idea what UX is, they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna let you take the lead, but we need to know what we're paying for. This is a great way to explain it to them. So your app or website product, right, has to be usable, useful, accessible, credible, findable, desirable, and valuable. And you have to show why you provide that ROI, right, return on investment. So these are great things that you can discuss with a client. Design thinking. So this is a designer's Bible, I guess. How you should always refer to design. So I'm going to get into actually about how it came about. So in the late 1980s, David Kelly had a talk with psychologist Albert Bandura. Does anybody recognize either of those names? Okay, so David Kelly actually started IDEO, which is like an innovation factory, I guess. And he has also started the D School at Stanford University. He's actually an engineer, an author as well. And then Albert Bandura is a social psychologist. He came up with the social cognitive theory, I believe, and he did the Bobo doll experiment. If any of you have seen that, it's probably an old video, and it's like a doll, basically in air, filled with air, and kids go in the room, and they start basically mocking each other. But based on social learning after a video they've watched, so they just start hitting the doll. Right? They both worked at Stanford. So Bandura had developed this practical framework for helping people overcome their fears. It was called guided mastery. And so that means a series of successful experience could help you get over a phobia. Right? So who has a fear in here? What do you fear? I saw a hand go up.
Heights.
Heights. Okay. So maybe for you to get over your fear of heights, there would be some series set up for you if you were to do a month of guided mastery, right? So first maybe you'd watch a video about heights. And then maybe somebody would, go up an elevator with you. And then maybe they would take you out onto the balcony. So it's like just, they're guiding you to get over that fear. So then, what Kelly did with this information, he wanted to apply it to people who feared creative exercises, right? Creativity is not easy. A lot of people say, oh, I'm not creative. And it's not true. Some people just fear it, right? It's a way of thinking, just like some people hate math. If you really apply yourself, there's 90% chance that you can do it. And that's how we came up with design thinking, right? So this started at the Stanford D School, which Kelly founded, and there's 5 steps to design thinking. Empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. So empathize is where you are doing all your user research, right? Who's your user? You have to be that user. You have to empathize with them and understand where they're coming from so you can make the product for them. Define, so this is where you start getting into like more of the structured documents after doing that research. So you're coming up with a persona. So who am I making this product for? I'm making it for Dali, who is a developer who works in Coconut Grove, right? And I have to do everything that he knows. So he can code, what do you code, Dali? Mean stack? Nope. So he doesn't, see, that's not his persona. Perfect. The role objectives, so what are you trying to do? Decisions you have to make, challenges in their current experience right now, and identifying pain points. Ideate, so that's where you share all of your ideas, you're doing some brainstorming, you're prioritizing, you're finding your MVP, which is your minimum viable product, which can translate, into business terms into your USP, which is your unique selling point. So why is your product good and different? Why do people want it? Prototype, that's where you start creating how the product looks, where things are going to be in the product, and creating storyboards, so how people are going to use your product from start to finish, and then testing. So you have to see if it works or not. So you go out and test it, and then implement on your feedback, iterate on your feedback, right? So it's an agile process. You always continue this, even after your product is coming out, right? Whenever you use something, you get an email or a notification that, oh, we have nothing. Oh, Facebook did this. Facebook's kind of in trouble a little bit. So that's part of the design thinking process. The Google Venture Design Sprint. So Jake Knapp is the author of this book. He worked for Google and Google Ventures for like 10 years or so. Now he's pretty much just an author. And he came up with a design sprint. So he wanted to answer 3 questions, in a short amount of time. Answer big questions, save time and money, and then jumpstart innovation. So it's a 5-day sprint, and it looks something like this. So in the first day, you map, then you sketch, decide, prototype, and test, right? Of course you have to iterate on this. It's not going to be your final product. But it's a great way to get things going quickly, so you can just move forward, right? You don't want to take forever to build a product, especially if you're under a strict timeline. In my experience actually at Ironhack, I was doing, I don't remember what project I was doing, but I tweeted Jake Knapp and I asked him a question, right? It's part of my research. He actually responded to me, which was pretty cool. He sent me this link, and I was able to put him in my slides, so great thing to know, right? He responds on Twitter. He already, yeah.
Who's the audience there? Is that like for us, or is that for a client?
This is just an example of what the sprint is. So it's a 5-day sprint. This is probably not something that you're going to do with a freelance client, right? I mean, you can. Probably not ideal, but this is just kind of to get your brain going, or something needs to be done really quickly.
Any reason why 5 days? Why not just like 2 days or any specific reason?
2-day sprint? I don't know. You probably have to be up for 48 hours. I would say, I think it's probably just the right amount of time. You don't want to crunch all that in 2 days because, I don't know, you probably go brain dead at that point. UX designers aren't like developers, like we don't stay up all night. We don't that's not our persona for the most part, can't generalize. All right, some tools that you need as a designer. Like I said, research, so competitive analysis. You want to look at what your competitors are doing. That's really important to know where they're lacking, how you can find those pain points, and then you can create something that solves those problems. Surveys, interviews, creating your persona, like I said, and how people are going to use it. The information architecture, concept sketching. So basically, concept sketching is how you think the product can look. Low, mid, and high fidelity wireframes and prototypes. So this is mid fidelity, just has black and white and gray normally. You make it in a program like Google Sketch, is what we use. High fidelity is where you add colors, fonts, you add in some of your UI there, excuse me. Testing, iterations, and then of course data and metrics to understand if the product is working or not. So interviews, I'm just going to sort of speed through this. It's pretty simple here. What need are you solving? Who are you solving it for, right? So you have to make sure you ask the right questions. Research. I love this quote, Einstein, great man. If I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes thinking about the solutions. So that's something else in user experience. You cannot be solutions-minded. I had an issue with this when I first started. I was like, oh, I have all these ideas of how I can make it better, but I wasn't finding out what the problem was first. You have to understand, like, why are people having this problem? How can it be better? You don't want to just come up with a solution that might not even work. So like I said, this is understanding your competitors and discovering those opportunities to define the differences in your product. Research. Solve real problems. Don't just make a product. You're not the user, remember that. Don't assume you know their problems. Don't assume they'll behave as you expect them to. And don't assume you've thought of everything. So make sure that it's great to collaborate with other people. As a freelance designer, sometimes it's hard. You can collaborate with people like the CEO or the product owner, but if you sign an NDA, so a non-disclosure agreement, you can't really collaborate with other designers because you can't talk about the product. Maybe in general, like, oh, I'm working on a travel product. If you're going to do this, then what would your thoughts be? But otherwise, it's a little difficult. So if you can collaborate, please do. People think differently. And also, don't assume people will behave as you expect them to. So a lot of people will say one thing and do another. I'm sure we've all experienced this in life, right? So make sure you really understand their actions and not their words. This is an example of a really nice user persona. So this is Drew. I did not make this, by the way. And there's just different things on here that explain sort of who he is, right? He's an influencer. So just some demographics, who he is, his behaviors, how he influences, what his pain points are, his motivations for being an influencer or wanting to change, and then some of the core things that he needs. And there's no one way to make a user persona, right? You have to have some information, it's pretty standard on what you need, but how it looks is up to you. And these are concept sketches. So this is actually related to what we're going to be doing here tonight in the workshop, so make sure you take a good look at this. So this can be considered a concept sketch or a low fidelity wireframe, right? It's basically the same thing. So it's those first thoughts you have about what the product can look like. Okay, so I know it needs these features, and this is how I'm going to plan it out. And there's different ways to come up. There's one exercise called Crazy Eights. So basically you fold a piece of paper into 8 sections, and then you create 8 versions of how it would look. And then when you're done, you can take your favorite ones and then move on to your testing. And then there's round robin. So say if you're working in a group of UX designers at a large company. So you each have one piece of paper, and then you draw one screen, and then you pass it around, and people just keep drawing the same screen or drawing the next screen, and then you choose the best screen. So it can be really fun and challenging, because sometimes you don't agree, and you have to figure out what's best, but that's what testing's for. Okay, so the UX workshop. So I would like you to take about 15 minutes to redesign 1, 2, or 3 screens. We have some papers here that Alex and I are going to hand out of your favorite app. So just go ahead and pull out your phone, or if you don't have your phone, go ahead and look on your laptop for your favorite app. Just try to redesign it. How you think it could look better or function better. If there's an app that you use and you think it functions terribly, I'd like you to try and change it around. So say you're doing a social network. You could redesign how a timeline looks. Say you're doing e-commerce. You could redesign the checkout. Think of maybe an experience you've had recently, or not recently, of how something was really frustrating you with an app. You just didn't like the way it worked, or it didn't make sense to you, maybe where a button was or something like that. It doesn't have to be a complete redesign. Maybe it's just moving one button or an icon. What's that? Cool. That's cool. That's cool. Got some collaboration going on over here.
No, come on.